All right, so we just did a video on graphing slope-intercept form. Now we're going to look at how to write equations in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is one of the most common ways you're going to see your functions written when you're trying to graph them. So that's why we need to look at how to write them. So if we do come across data, we can write down that information to form the line that we're trying to create. Because sometimes you're not given full data for the line, but you can use that data to actually write out the line and then graph it. We're going to look at three different cases. The three cases we're going to look at is if we're given the slope and the y-intercept, which is the easiest, given in standard form, a little bit more difficult, and then 2 points. And then within the 2 points, we're actually going to look at two subways to do it. We're going to graph, and then we're going to formula it. Personally, I'd rather graph, but you can use the formula. It just takes a little bit more time. So let's jump right in with case 1. So our first example, so we are given the slope equals -5 divided by 4, and the y-intercept equals 1. So we need to remember that we're looking for y equals mx plus b. That's all we need. We need the m and the b. So we need m and b. Well, m is the slope, b is the y-intercept. That immediately, it gives it to us. It straight gives this to us, so we can just plug those in. So for this, m equals -5/4, b equals 1. So it's y equals -5/4 x plus 1. And that's all we have to do for that. Don't overcomplicate these. People do that a lot with these ones. Don't overcomplicate them. Our next case is going to be when it's in standard form. So we've got 10x plus 7y equals -28. So this is in standard form. We haven't really talked about standard form yet, but we will in a little bit. Actually, the next lesson. So just know that this is standard form. We're still trying to get y equals mx plus b. But this is where our solving multivariable equations for variables comes in. So we're going to solve for y. So we're going to take this, we're going to solve for y. So that means we need to subtract 10x to both sides. So we move the 10x, and we get 7y equals -10x minus 28. That's just an arrow. It's a poorly drawn arrow. And then here we are going to divide 7 to everything. So we divide 7 to everything. 7 divided by 7 equals 1. -10 divided by 7 stays like it is. And -28 divided by 7 gives us -4. So we get y equals -10 divided by 7x minus 4. And that's all we have to do for these. All right, now we're going to look at the third case. That third case is writing given 2 points. And we're going to do the graphing way. So we're going to do the same example. So we're going to look at 2, -1, and 0, -4. All right, let's get refocused. And this is going to be the graphing method. So the graphing method, we are going to first put dots on the graph. So we put our dots on the graph. So we go to 2, -1, put a dot. Then we go to 0, -4, put a dot. Once we put the dots on the graph, we get our straight edge, ruler, something so that we can draw a line through these dots. So that is really shiny. Let me just flip it over this way. So we draw our line through here, and we want to draw it all the way across the graph. The reason being is that we want to see where it crosses the y-axis. Now, you can see here, we have a dot on the y-axis. That's not always going to happen. So we want to look, and I'm okay with you kind of guessing because you're going to mess up with your lines, but putting it right there as best you can. So what we're going to do now is we found our B. So we put dots on graph. Next thing we do is draw a line across the graph. So we draw our line across the graph. Just put that up there. Then we find our B. So here our B is -4. And then we find slope between points. So we're going to find the slope between these 2 points. So we look, and we're going to do rise over run. So we have to remember it's rise divided by run. And we want to go left or right. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, so +3, and then right 2, so +2. So a rise is +3, +2, which is 3 divided by 2. And then we just write our equation. So it's y equals slope 3/2 x. Let me write that a little better. So y equals 3/2 x minus 4. That's it. So that's how we do the graphing method. I prefer this method. Now let's do this same problem, but we'll do the formula method. This will be much more accurate than graphing, but it's not as fast. So for the formula method, and we should still get the same answer. It's not going to be a different answer. So for the formula method, we are going to do step 1 is find slope by using y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which is called the slope formula. This is basically the rise over run that we just did here, except we're going to have to do some arithmetic stuff instead of just counting. So our 2 points give us an x1 and a y1 and an x2 and a y2, and we just put it into this formula and go. So we get -4 minus 2 divided by 0 minus -1. This gives us that. So we get I messed that up, didn't I? Oops, sorry. So we get -4 minus -1 0 minus 2. So that gives us negative 3 over negative 2, which turns out to be 3 divided by 2, because 2 negatives make a positive. So that's our m. Sorry about that. It threw me a second. I was like, there's something wrong there. So for step 2, we write with m. So we get y equals 3/2 x plus b. Step 3, we find b by plugging in and xy. So we have to use these, plug it in. You can use either one. It'll give you the same answer. I'm going to pick this one, though. We're going to use 0, 4, 0, negative 4. And I'll show you why here in a second. So when we plug this in place, so this is x and this is y, we get negative 4 equals 3/2, and then in place of that x, we put 0. And that's great, because when you multiply by 0, that means it disappears. So that means we get that b equals negative 4. So now we have our m and our b. Now we plug in b and get y equals 3/2 x minus 4. Now, this one was pretty easy because of the numbers. They won't always be that easy if you use this method. Sometimes you have to multiply and add, subtract fractions, but that's fine. You can do it. So there we go, writing in slope-intercept form.